Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning. I am so grateful for all of you being here with us on a Saturday after a long week, after a long year. But I am thrilled to be bringing back the fire and love and inspiration that I certainly felt yesterday, and I hope that many of you did as well coming out of the conversations. My name is Cassie Parham. I'm a founding co-director of the Oakland Literacy Coalition. I'm also an OUSD parent. I have a second grader at Laurel, and my younger daughter will be joining her there next year. Before we jump into our amazing speakers for this morning, I wanted to share just a few housekeeping kind of logistics reminders. Hopefully you've all had a chance to log into Whova, and that's likely how you got into this session today. It's been really fun to see the conversations and the messages that are going back and forth, the competitions. You can put in a photo that connects to our theme, and there may be prizes at the end. It also has the agenda with the links to all of the upcoming workshop sessions for the day. If you need help navigating Whova or getting logged in or anything on Zoom, you can reach out to symposium@oaklandliteracycoalition.org for tech support. We have translation available. So if you go to the bottom of your Zoom screen and select interpretation, you'll be able to select into the language. And then lastly, a reminder, I know we're months and months into Zoom and are all familiar with this, but a reminder to please keep yourself on mute if not speaking, so we just avoid the kind of background noise, and then you can use chat or Q&A. And I will pause and just see, were there any other announcements or updates anyone on my team needed to share? Awesome. So as we get started, I want to thank you all again and acknowledge you for being here today, and welcome back those of you who were able to spend yesterday with us as well. I also really want to thank the people who made this happen, my just incredible team of colleagues at the Literacy Coalition who put so much energy and talent into this. Leela Richardson, our event coordinator, and the many partners and collaborators who have guided and co-created these 2 days with us, along with the incredible lineup of presenters. I also really want to thank our presenting partners, Stefan and Aisha Curry's Eat, Learn, Play Foundation, along with the Hellman Foundation, and the sponsors who have helped make this conference possible. I want to say that, I'm speaking for today from my home in Oakland, and I want to acknowledge and honor that this is Ohlone land. If you weren't here yesterday, I really encourage you to check out the recording of the morning plenary that should be available on Whova, where the Sogorea Te' Land Trust spoke to ways that we can actively support visibility and justice for our Indigenous community. And we're going to get started with our first speakers in just a few minutes, but I also, I want to take a little bit of time just to reflect on the theme for why we're here. We chose the theme Literacy and Justice for All to reflect the urgency of the moment, the importance of literacy as a fundamental civil right, and the enduring injustice and the moral crisis of this issue. The broader historical and societal context that makes it possible for a white student in Oakland to be 5 times more likely to be reading proficiently than a Black student in the flatlands just a few miles away from the hills. Because as Aja Simmons so powerfully shared in our closing session yesterday, when we don't look at the history and the context, we start to see structural barriers as stereotypes. And instead of working to fix oppressive systems, we try to fix kids. And kids are not and have never been the problem. Our hope is that literacy and justice for all creates space to dig deeper into these issues while also serving as a powerful call to action. Because while our current reality is unconscionable and deeply rooted, it's not inevitable or unchangeable. And that's why we're here, to learn together, to collaborate, to elevate the power and the solutions that are already within our community, and to strategize what more is needed. As Kareem Weaver challenged us yesterday morning to show up willing to be wrong, to share our truths, and to find our purpose to meet this present moment. So our opening session today centers on the theme of changing the narrative and embracing our stories. And so I'll take a minute just to share a little bit of my own. I was constantly reading as a kid, and I have so many fond memories connected to books. I think it was a way for my introverted, shy self as a kid to find quiet and independence. And even though I've always thought of myself as a reader, I don't actually have clear memories at all of the process of learning how to read. Recently, though, I've had the just magical experience of getting to watch my 7-year-old become a reader. And like some kids, she was lucky that it came relatively easy to her. And she also has privilege, race, class, certainly surrounded by books at home and amazing preschool and early elementary teachers in OUSD. And, while watching her read aloud to her imaginary students in her, bedroom classroom, or take her favorite books to sleep at night instead of stuffed animals. It's been beautiful, and I have cherished that. And it also makes me deeply angry because the ability to read is far too important to be left to luck or privilege. We all have different stories of ourselves and our kids and our students that shape our beliefs and fuel our motivations. So our speakers throughout this morning, and really this has been a through line throughout our conference, they'll be sharing their own personal stories and helping us to connect into our why for how and why we do this work, and stay open and curious about what more we can learn about ourselves and each other. And so with that, I am so delighted to introduce our first speaker, Zouhair Mussa with Youth Speaks. He's a poet who will be sharing some of his art with us this morning. Zouhair is a Sudanese Nubian American writer, a spoken word poet, MC, and community organizer from West Oakland. His art is based on true events and aims to address real problems within his community. He seeks to shed light on injustices that plague the place he calls home, all while speaking from his personal point of view growing up in West Oakland. He wants to uplift and inspire change in his community with the aid of his artistic expression. And with that, Zouhair, I turn it over to you.
How y'all doing? This poem is called Ego Tripping. After Nikki Giovanni, ego tripping. Something I ain't too good at. If I was a superhero, I'd make sure my whole section eating. Slide through the hills with a ski, I'm Robin Hood redirecting karma, bulletproof to make up for this body turned hollow vase. Well aware of how fragile thick skin becomes when met with lead, my fingers spilt horchata from four-way sticking the money, I hand out stocks instead of Glocks. My eyes, surveillance cameras always on my 10, my flesh, a magnet for hot shit, but my feet, quick as ever. Last week I juked a close call. Ran 3 blocks in 5 seconds. My punter said if he don't turn sharpshooter, every hood baby turn track star when them shots pop up. I'm superhuman by way of war zone. Good intuition paired with trust issues. I'm from beyond this solar system. Walked through space a few times. This is when I fell in love with life. Now I can only find bliss in the vast unknown. I'm air. Heavy with pressure on my chest and evasive as hell. I'm history. From the Nile River malaria in my mama's bloodstream to the single mother hustle she passed on to me while pregnant. I'm so-called parental neglect. My father taught me how to vanish from thin air. I'm a tree by water. I sway with the wind but stand tall in stature. I'm an earthquake. Maintaining solid ground, but beneath the surface, my hands shake. I'm never standing still, always carrying tense shoulders and balled up fists. Today I realize I feel most at peace when ready to fight. Ask my brother if I'm paranoid or crazy. He said we bleed PTSD. I'm misdirection paired with dedication and a little bit miseducation. My bad habit. And thus far, I devoted my whole life to beating statistics. In pursuit of a dream I found between inner peace and economic prosperity. Diagnosed poor when my mama had me, I can show you what a child soldier looked like. A youngin' struggling to wave a K the size of his torso. I drum on it, he not afraid to bang, the smile on his face twisted as ever. I'm the land of stolen youth, where fun often involves bullets. I'm quiet pain when my auntie grabs my hair, weaves it into her image, a beautiful art piece that stains my scalp with love. My closest friend only tags along on my loneliest nights. I refer to him as nostalgia, an extension of the past I don't miss, taught me to fall in love with silence before I ever touched a video game. Well, I could never be a superhero, and I never bonded well with kids my age. Less than #1 coming out of Oakland, never be Captain Save-A-Blank. Understand anybody can fill that space. I follow this principle to a degree of self-alienation. Mainstream media would only see it fit to paint me as a villain. I'm shattered glass westbound. Around Christmas time, my snow falls from car windows, a testimony to true desperation, a vow to get it by any means necessary, but we call it bipping. I'm where two paths meet, the intersection of Adeline and West Grand. OG told me he's seen one too many casualties and neglect where I'm standing. And I told him I too, young as hell, still walking from MLK, witnessed my cousin's legs snap like twigs when bumper met child, met airtime, met pavement over there on 18th Street. I'm the words on my paper. Found comfort in the hug of a page over and over and over again. I'm Princess Powell's addiction poem. My pen and I grew inseparable. If you truly want to reach me, speak to me through art or dollar signs. Understand my conversion theory of emotions to phrases. I don't comprehend basic interactions, or I don't try hard enough. Maybe that's the thing. I'm one too many things, all of which lead to an ultimate goal. In the words of Mac Dre, I'm a lot of people, and they all trying to get paid. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zouhair. That was incredible. Please join me in thanking him. You can share your comments in the chat. You know, the power of storytelling is it has the ability to help us both heal and also transform lives. It offers a way for us to find the power in our voice and build power collectively in our movements for justice and social change. And so the speakers coming up next, Rene Benavides and Mark Isero from the VTA Collective, are advocates of healing and stepping into our collective power. And they're going to be going through a more interactive session with us this morning, where we're going to get to tap into our own kind of stories and storytelling in this work. Rene Benavides is a leader, designer, facilitator, and coach. She's the founder of the VTA Collective, working to create spaces where educators, practitioners, and justice workers can heal, reflect, and imagine a more inclusive and equitable future together. Mark Isero is an advocate for reading and literacy. He's the founder of the Kindle Classroom Project, which promotes independent reading and offers unlimited books to more than 2,500 young people in Oakland. He's a former teacher and charter network administrator. And Mark is now focused on connecting people through literacy. And Mark and Rene, I'm so grateful to have you here today, and turn over the floor to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I feel it important just to take a moment to just acknowledge the power and the feeling I have in my body after listening to that spoken word. I can feel it in my heart. I'm kind of struck by this idea of, you know, and shared experience. I feel like I resonate with very strongly around. I can show you what a child soldier looks like, and this like also piece that stands out to me around I can stand tall, something that we'll do together. We'll actually engage in a little bit of a practice together. I want to take a moment to just share my gratitude for this moment, all that led up to this moment in time with all of us in this room together. Bring us back to myself to honor you know, the indigenous folks, both past and present, on the land that I'm standing on. I'm actually calling in from the lands called Huichin, the unceded ancestral lands of the Confederated Villages of the Shan. and encourage all of us. I really appreciated the plenary yesterday to really bring some attention into the ways that we can, at least for me, myself, do learning myself around my own ancestry. And that really will take us into a little bit of me sharing about my why, around why I'm here and how I show up in this space, my entry point into literacy and the education world was really through mental health. So I have a background, I'm a social worker at heart, educator at heart. Identify as a brown, queer, mixed blood Indigenous person, really considered by many an immigrant on my own land. And with that, we'll share just my background and my story around literacy. Growing up as a young child in Southern California, literacy was really, the story and the narrative shaped around literacy was that it was a way for me to be successful in school, really to find my way out of the poverty, the complex pressures that were around me. And as a child, much of what I read and what many of the stories that I was told challenged me to really reshape who I was, a narrative around my being, who I am, as not being enough. And as I grew older and found different avenues for reading and literacy, found the real power in storytelling, in coming home to who I was and the power in that. And so that really is why I'm here today, is that my work, I feel very passionately about our work for young people and families and in community really starts with ourselves and our work and who we are. And, you know, literacy for the sake of liberation for me, not just, you know, the stories, having access to those things as someone with a disability, access is something that's very important. And yeah, that's kind of what brings me here today. I'll kind of pass it over to my partner here, Mark, to share a little bit about his story.
Thank you, Renee, and thank you everybody for being here. I just have a lot of gratitude that we are all here, being able to tell some stories today about who we are and why literacy is important to us. I was thinking about the piece of the story that I wanted to share this morning, and it came back to my childhood. It's a very early memory of me being very young with my grandmother reading me books in her first language, and me trying my best to reciprocate, to sort of give the gift back in exchange by reading to her books in my first language. And there weren't always very many books around at the time in my house, but there was abundance. There was an abundance of story together, and there was an abundance of love and connection. And my grandmother obviously is far gone now, but I remember very deeply those times that I had with her, very important early literacy and reading moments. And I have to say, no matter how many different things or people that I work with, it all comes back to me about reading. And it's something so deep in me. And I know that it's something so deep in all of us. And yet I continue to ask about my why. And I'm really hopeful that today we can continue to tell each other stories about what is at our core about our why in our literacy stories. So I just want to thank you all for being here, because we are going to be engaging in that in just a moment.
Thank you, Mark. So how did this session come to be? You know, Mark and I kind of show up in this space and situated somewhat differently in kind of the arenas that we work in most often. But we realized, you know, there's a lot of conversations about what it is or how literacy, but not often a conversation around why, or where do we really center in our own purpose. And so we're going to move to actually walk through a process together. I'm going to move to share my screen in a moment. And yeah, we're going to have some dialogue around what your purpose is. Where are you coming? What are your stories around literacy, and how does that shape what you feel is important around literacy? So move to share my screen real quick. So again, I mentioned before, for me, my why is around literacy for the sake of liberation, my own, starting with myself, right? My own liberation, moving at my own pace, learning my own stories, hearing narratives of, folks like me, not just being highlighted in a way that's deficit-based, but really that is uplifting, that is folks standing in their power. So I want us all in this space to really take a moment of literacy for the sake of what, right? When we think about literacy, what is that grounded in? What sense of purpose? What is on the other side of whatever those goals are that we might have, or whatever strategy that is that we're trying in this moment, whatever we're prioritizing? I think something that's important and that we want to highlight in this session is that it's really easy for us to be off center from that, right? If I acknowledge the current moment that we're in right now, that many of you in this space are feeling in your bodies, there's tons of pressure that exists outside of this Zoom space, maybe even when you look behind you outside of the window, right? Real world space. And then within the educational spaces, the learning spaces that you're in, regardless of where that is, acknowledging that it doesn't always happen in the walls of a schoolhouse, right? Or of a school. Learning happens in lots of different places. But there's lots of pressure in our lives that can sometimes take us away from that sense of purpose, that sense of why. And so a hope for this time is really that we all get a little bit of space to really consider literacy for the sake of what. I know that the folks at Oakland Literacy Symposium have done a wonderful job of really posing that question ongoing to us throughout the weekend of what does literacy and justice for all look like? Where does that start? And so let's take a moment. Mark's going to actually guide us in a little bit of reflective journaling around that.
Thanks, Renee. Just to frame this first piece, we all really acknowledge and understand the importance and the power of being with ourselves and with our thoughts. And so Renee and I wanted to really honor that here, that we will each have some time to be with ourselves and honoring our thoughts. And the second thing is that there's a whole lot of power in writing our stories, telling our stories, and retelling our stories. And so in order to frame that, we're going to be offering a 5-minute time for each of us individually to do some reflective journaling with these prompts in mind. What role has literacy played in your life? And how has that shaped what is important to you about literacy? We invite you to begin with these prompts, but also if they don't speak to you, obviously go with where your thoughts and your body is going. And you can also just go ahead and write with any sort of device. This is you and your time. But Renee and I also want to let you know that after the 5 minutes, there's going to be a sharing where you're going to be in a small group with somebody else, where you're going to be able to share part of your story. And so in this 5 minutes, it's also an opportunity to get ready for that part too, the actual storytelling. And one thing about that is if you do not feel like it feels right, or you're not comfortable for whatever reason to therefore share after about 5 minutes, what we would like to invite you to do is put an asterisk or a star at the beginning of your Zoom name, to rename your Zoom name if you'd like to opt out after the next 5 minutes. And then there's just going to be additional time for you to do some thinking and processing. I just want to pause just for a moment if there are any questions in the chat before we open up the 5 minutes of time and space for you to be able to do some reflective journaling. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're going to be now opening this time for us to be with our own thoughts and our own stories for the next 5 minutes.
Hi, Mark.
All right, everybody. I'd like to thank you all and also try to find a good stopping place in your journaling. sometimes I'm surprised, even with a short period of time, how deep I can get into things. Sometimes it happens and sometimes not. So whatever you were able to write about, it's your story. And it is really, really important to share also, if that is something that that interests you and that moves you. And so like that is what we're going to be doing next. So before we get into sharing though, I wanted to sort of talk a little bit about the listening also. And so Rene will be going to this piece. So sharing our stories about literacy is very powerful, but also the gift of listening is also very powerful. So we're going to be getting into a listening space and a storytelling space. So some agreements are that each person will have equal time, in this case, 3 minutes each. So the first person will tell their story for 3 minutes, and then the other person will be listening, and then you will switch. So make sure that you are also each other's timekeeper as well. Also, please hold double confidentiality, which just means that your story is there in the room for the gift of yourself and you're not going to be asked about it. And it's just there to be shared between the two of you. Please also limit distractions, anything in your hands, just really fully be there as a listener. Obviously, do not interrupt. And we're going to be speaking, obviously, from our own experiences. So that's the piece on listening. And just to sort of like get ready for that, there's going to be a total of 10 minutes. So in a moment, we are going to be getting into a breakout with one other person and into a dyad. And everybody who has an asterisk by their name is going to stay in the main room. And Rene and I have some other possible prompts to invite you if you would like. But here are the discussion prompts, the same ones that you wrote about. What role has literacy played in your life, and how has that shaped what is important to you about literacy? And so it's 9:35 now. And so we're going to be moving into groups. Please just go ahead and welcome each other once you're there. You can say hello, decide on the first person, and then you'll have 3 minutes each. And then for a total overall for 10. So there's a little bit of space for that too. So thanks also for putting those prompts in the chat. And we are going to be moving into breakouts in the next few seconds. We'll see you back in 10 minutes.
Like breakout rooms were open and folks may need to choose or select a breakout room to join. So slight adjustment, if you are someone that is opting into sharing with folks, please go down to the bottom right of your screen and select a breakout room.
How many do you want per room, Rene?
2 per room. We'll adjust time just to make sure we have enough time for folks to make their way to rooms and have enough time to share. Some folks are chatting if we can move them into rooms. make sure that happens. All right, so I want to appreciate folks for hopping into some space with each other to do some listening and sharing. Back in the main room, we had some conversation around the power of storytelling and the role storytelling has played. Also having some conversation around where does, literacy and justice for all starts with. I talked about various different things, but just want to appreciate you all. Something that's important for me is storytelling, the impact that platicas and storytelling and sitting around my grandmother's table have had for me, the wisdom that I have found there. And I hope that that was supportive of you all and being able to share with one another about your connection to literacy. The next piece that we're going to really move into next is we're going to jump into a little bit of a centering practice together. I mentioned earlier that there are a lot of pressures around us on the day-to-day, right? That sometimes we can get kind of caught up in can think back to my school administrative days and just the pace at which I was moving, the constant pressures around me, that I can kind of get off center quite easily at times. And so it's really important that we have practices in our lives that support us in coming back to center and recentering in our purpose about what is important to us and frankly, what we're committed to, right? Like not just what our intentions are, but I appreciated that being surfaced in the main room also, not just our intentions, but what are we committed to and what are we actively doing to support us in our vision forward. I want to ground us in before we jump into the centering exercise with this quote by Sonia Renee Taylor. Transformation takes a state and turns it into a new state. It doesn't leave an absence of a thing. Liberation is what is available to us, not just what is gone from us. I invite us to start thinking about what is actual liberation? What if we design from that place? So this quote, I invite you to use the chat to just kind of share what this quote means to you or kind of what surfaces in your body as you read this quote or you heard me read it aloud. The context of which it was offered was really some conversation around anti-racism, and that while that work is important, we also have to consider what lives on the other end. What is it? What are those small seeds that we are planting in service of liberation? And so I invite you to think about what are those kind of 1 to 2 small seeds that you've planted that you are continuing to tend to in your life around what's important. And so in order to kind of highlight the importance of the practice we're going to get into, I'm actually going to show this next slide, which is that what we know about somatics, right, embodying a new habit is that it takes 300 repetitions in order to embody, right, coming back to centering in our purpose. It actually takes 3,000 reps in order for us to embody this sense of purpose into action while under pressure. And so a question I have for this group, and I'm often asking of many spaces that I'm in, is what might happen if all of us moved from a place of centered purpose ongoing? If we were in the habit of engaging in this practice of centering on purpose consistently. So I'll move to share my audio for this next piece, which is to, now that you've done some time thinking about what you feel is important around literacy, let's like center in that as you engage in your day, as we say goodbyes from this space and you move into the next spaces that you're going to be in. And from then on, right? And so again, this practice I'm sharing with you is an emerging practice for myself. I'm going to actually play an audio clip of myself reading a passage from the text called Holding Change by Adrienne Marie Brown. It's a centering practice that's pretty foundational around somatic practice. And I'm going to move to share audio. And I invite you while this is going on you can keep camera on or off. It's up to you. For this practice, you're invited to sit, stand, or lay down, whatever feels right for your body. Sitting, standing, or laying down, notice what is, without judgment or trying to fix yourself. Notice things like temperature, tension, pain, activity, your clothing on your skin, your mood, your pace. Even notice where you might be numb and how deeply you can breathe. It might take a few moments to scan your body and notice all the sensations, emotions, moods. Now you are going to center on purpose. Bring your attention to the center of your being, which on many human bodies is about 2 inches below the belly button, the midpoint between the soles of our feet and the tops of our skulls. It can help to place your hand on your lower belly to feel your center in your palm, and let the sensation of your hand bring your attention to center. Sometimes you can bring a hand to touch your back so you can feel the 360 degrees of your center. If your eyes have closed or you have otherwise turned inward, you're invited to reopen them and stay connected for the centering practice. We want to learn to center while in touch with the world. From this center, fill into length. Feel the sensations of length along the body, and without effort, relax into your full length, your full dignity. This may mean giving more of ourselves to gravity, feeling an extension into relationship with the earth. If you are sitting or standing, it may mean imagining a string gently inviting your head up to the stars. Raise and drop your shoulders. The dignity you are centering is organic. It's yours. It isn't a performance or a puffing up. One of the things trauma can steal away from us is dignity. So many methods of oppression have led to a shrinking, looking down, hunkering in. Each time we center in our full length and dignity, we are reclaiming our original selves. Center in dignity. From that dignity, we center in width. Imagine a scroll unfurling from your spine to the outer edges of your being. Feel the sensations of width as your lungs fill with air. Notice if you favor one side or the other in your hips. Feel the boundaries along the outer edges of yourself. Where do you end? Where does the person next to you begin? Feel your boundaries. Let them be solid and porous. Width as a dimension is where we practice taking up space, where we assert that we all have the right to take up space. This is the horizontal dimension of connection, of the collective, of being in circle with others. We have the right to be in right relationship with others, connected and with healthy boundaries. In our dignity and spacious, balanced connection, we center in our depth. Within, this means giving more depth. Stop sucking in your stomach, relax, feel the depth from the front of your heart to the back of it, the front of your stomach to the back. You are three-dimensional. Now feel the sensations on the back of your body. Maybe the texture of a shirt or wind across your shoulders. At our backs is our history, lineage, all that came before this moment, both in our lives and in the long journey of our species, our societies, our landscapes, our planet, our universe. So much has conspired to bring about this particular moment. You may even feel the presence of known and unknown ancestors at your back. Coming through the body, balance between what's behind and what's ahead. At our fronts, you can also feel the sensation of wind, clothing. Sometimes I notice the feeling of my breath on my upper lip as it leaves my body. Out ahead of us lies the unknown, the mystery, that which we will shape together. Feel the depth of your lifetime and this moment. Center in your depth. What is it you love? What is it you most long for? Whatever vision you have of the future, who is it you must be in order to realize that vision? Feel that love and longing in the center of your being. and let it fill you up with purpose. If you have a commitment, speak it to yourself now. All right, folks. With that, I invite you to do a quick mood check, to just share in the chat, I feel, however you feel, no right or wrong. And I'll leave you with a couple questions that, because of time, we're not going to get to, but are going to be, we feel are important for you all to think about as you leave this space. What is it, the future you long for related to literacy? And who is it that you need to be to get there? Well, with that, I'll pass it back to the Oakland Literacy Coalition folks. Thanks for this time.
Thank you so much, Renee and Mark. That was just incredibly beautiful, and for me, such a powerful way to start the day with some of that inner just reflection and space and quiet. I really loved, I wrote it down, we want to learn to center while being in touch with the world. I think, you know, being able to carry that practice and that grounding throughout all of the stress and pressure and madness that can be our day-to-day. So I really loved that. Thank you for being here and for sharing with us. We are coming up on the end of our our opening plenary. And we'll have just a minute or two for folks to transition into your workshops. My hope is that, you know, you take the story and the reflection and the intentions that you thought through this morning and carry them forward as you go into workshops through the rest of today. Our first round of workshops start at 10:15. The sessions are Agentic Students and Literacy, Intervention is Racist, and Life is a Primary Text, an experiential youth speaks writing workshop for educators. And as a reminder, even though I know I want to be in all three of those, even though you can only attend one right now, the sessions will all be recorded and you'll have access to them through the Whova app. And then we won't reconvene as a full group until our close. So our afternoon workshops that'll happen before, they start at 12:10. And we have two workshops. They're the Oakland Reach and Fluent Seeds partnership. And it's Not the Swing of the Pendulum, Reading and the Brain. And again, if you go on Whova, you can see the times, you can see the workshop descriptions. And again, we'll have the recordings all available through there. So thank you all for being here this morning. And I hope that the next few hours are just full of rich and amazing conversations and learning and connection. And we will see you soon.